Yeah, one of your articles that I read on your Substack I thought was fascinating when there was this focus group you did where you had a significant, a relatively large group of people, and they were invited to a Zoom meeting, and you broke it into half-hour segments with people that were watching the Matt Walsh "What Is a Woman," and then they'd break down into groups, and then they would have dialogue about it. And most of the people weren't buying all the gender ideology, and you were talking about how people self-censor and what their response was. So I think that was fascinating. Maybe you can talk a little bit about the sociological dynamic that you observed during this informal study that you were doing.
Yeah, and I think this isn't even just in the study. I think in general. Well, I mean, first I can talk about the study. I it was, and I guess it wasn't really like a formal study. It was kind of a group of just people who are interested in watching the movie who came together and watched it over like a big Zoom call, and then we split out into breakout groups through Zoom to just chat through what we were seeing, what we were thinking about it. And in each group, we split up every, I think, 30 minutes or so. And in each group that I was in with different people from the meeting, everyone kind of agreed that woman's an adult human female. All of these people that Matt Walsh was interviewing were kind of crazy and were saying some really ridiculous things. But then when we all came back together into our large group with everyone, the same people who were kind of mocking these activists and were saying, "Oh yeah, they're so ridiculous," suddenly were very, very quiet because there was a person on the call who identified as trans, and this person who identified as trans was like, "Let me tell my truth. Let me say what I think a woman is. That a woman is anyone who identifies as a woman," and everyone kind of just nodded along and was like, "Oh yes, of course, yes," which was the exact opposite of what they were saying in the small groups. But there definitely was this vibe of not wanting to hurt this person's feelings, not wanting to make this person feel uncomfortable, and so people stopped saying what they were saying in the smaller groups. And I've noticed this trend not only in this one group, but I think kind of in general. Like when I was in universities, we were talking about the kind of the social environment there. I thought when I was in university that every single person that I was in class with, every single person that I saw believed in all of this gender stuff. And I think after the experience that I had with the What Is a Woman kind of group, I realized there's probably are a significant number of people that I was in school with, in class with, who didn't believe in it, but were just going along with it because of fear of either social ostracization. That I totally said that word wrong. But yeah, being like a social outcast or of hurting someone's feelings. And yeah, I think it's one of the reasons why this ideology and this movement has progressed as much as it has, is that people who, I don't think that most people agree with it, but I think that most people are afraid to speak out and are afraid to say what they're really feeling. And that's, yeah, a big reason why this is spreading as fast as it is because people are just trying to keep up with niceties and make people feel good, and they aren't really saying what, like the elephant in the room, the emperor has no clothes, this is ridiculous.
I find that absolutely fascinating because I myself a few years ago was in a social event, and I know that this one person is a real ally of the LGBTQ community, and there was a group of people. I was having a drink and just talking, and that person was there, and then we're referring to another person, and I caught myself referring to them by saying, "Oh yeah, they were assigned this gender at birth." And I specifically adopted this language from the Sociological Pressure, referring to somebody else who's non-binary or trans or whatever they identify as in front of the ally, in order to not be offensive or create a social conflict. So I find myself, and I've got a pretty strong personality. I'm closing in on 60 years old. I'm pretty secure in who I am, but I even find myself self-censoring and buying into it per se. And you multiply that culturally, it's just like you're saying, the emperor has no clothes. And I think that's the same type of tactics that were used in with the communist movements, that everyone, were forced to tell lies, and people weren't allowed to speak the truth for fear of being sent to a gulag or ostracization, or not even getting their kids into the right college, or losing their jobs. And I see that same spirit acting all throughout the United States. And I think we're going to lose the West. I think we just need to really not be a jerk, but let's just speak truth. Speak truth. Just versus just acquiescing for fear, or fear of getting punished, or fear of getting canceled, or fear of getting fired. I think, it's going to that's going to happen. And it is happening. But I think we need to develop the sociological mass where it's not acceptable anymore to do that kind of stuff. Otherwise, we're going to descend into more and more chaos and craziness and in utter insanity as a culture, and so I find that study that even though it was anecdotal and even though it was a small group, I find it compelling because I see that all around us in society,
Yeah, and you said it's more than just, like you said, more than just the gender stuff. It's all of, well, I guess not everything, but it's a lot of aspects of society. I mean, we saw it with, or at least I saw it with COVID as well. A lot of people were upset or unhappy with how the government was really pushing people to get vaccinated, how they shut down all of the jobs and were not letting people really leave their homes, the vaccine passports. But a lot of people were afraid of being called an anti-vaxxer or being seen as a science denier. And so they kind of went along with it and either didn't say anything or, went fully and got all of the vaccinations. And even if they didn't really want to, just because they were afraid of what other people were going to say or of what punishments could come down from the government. And I think the social fear is something that I've gotten over the last few years, but I'm very concerned about the way that the government is getting involved with a lot of these things, including the gender stuff. Like I don't know if you've heard about how in Canada they've passed laws where misgendering is now illegal.
Yes.
And there are activists in the US who are trying to pass similar laws to make misgendering a hate crime. They're trying to, change Title IX to force colleges to change their rules about how they handle biological sex and gender identity. And so that movement from, social issues or social punishment for going against the grain to government punishment is really, really scary, and seeing how fast that's moving.
Yeah, and even some female athletes that know that if men were competing in their sports, they would not be able to compete with the top male athletes in their field. But yet it seems like even though they have successful careers and they wouldn't like it if men came in, they affirm that men should be able to play in their sports because of the sociological pressure. And it seems like a lot of these female athletes that are supporting this are doing it out of fear and virtue signaling and to look woke and to look cool and progressive. But deep down inside, they know it's not fair. When you look at the sprinting records, the 100-yard dash up to the marathon, on average, the world record at the highest level is about 9% difference between males and females along all categories. So how can you take the top females in the world and compete even with the top 2% of men? The men will win. It's just biology on so many different levels. But yet we're pushing these agendas, and it's really absurd. It's really an erasure of femininity. and all the incredible progress feminists have made in our society. And it's like they're looking to undo all that, which I think is abhorrent and wrong. And I think we need to step out and just say, hey, this is unfair. This is just not right, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The sports thing, it should be such an obvious place where this ideology fails, right? But so many people on the left really do believe that taking hormones like undoes every aspect of your biology.
Yeah.
I've seen people who even believe that the like surgeries, like if you're a male and you get the vaginoplasty surgery, you can have children and become pregnant. Like the amount of just, I mean, I hate the word misinformation, but like just the lies are being spread in order to push this agenda. The real anti-science that's being pushed is just boggling. And the fact that so many like biologists and medical professionals won't speak out either, again because they're afraid of the mob coming after them or what the social implications will be. It's just really, really unfortunate, and it makes me scared that, especially, yeah, so many people who are considered experts are falling into this, as well as, you know, regular citizens who may not know any better as to what the data is saying. But when you have very educated experts pushing lies, that's when it becomes really scary.
Yeah, and this virus will not stop. I mean, it seeks to take over every institution, churches, sports, gender. It will not stop until we stop it. And so whether or not you're afraid right now, it's easier now to take a stand than it will be 5, 10 years down the road when they get more control and less free speech and less ability to get together and speak your mind. They're going to get more and more power until we break it, until we say no. And so doctors, you need to speak the truth. You know, educators, you need to speak the truth. And yeah, there will be casualties, but otherwise we're going to lose our society because this is a virus and it seeks to control and is authoritarian.